This is Think Smart with TMFG, weekly podcast of what's newsworthy and relevant to everyday Canadians. I'm your host, Senior Financial Advisor Mike Connon of CI Asante Wealth Management. Welcome to Think Smart with TMFG. Mike Connon, this is Carlo Cancino, Senior Financial Advisor with CI Asante Wealth Management. So Carlo, after people spend 30 to 40 years building wealth, many people discover the hardest part of financial planning isn't saving the money, it's learning how to spend it properly. For most of the working lives, the message is pretty straightforward. Save more, invest consistently, build your portfolio.
Right.
But something interesting happens later in life, whether someone's approaching retirement, selling a business, or simply reaching a point where their investments are meant to support their lifestyle, the financial conversation begins to change.
So today, we're going to talk about that transition, the shift of the mindset from saving to spending, and look at a few practical ways people can make that change more comfortably, like thinking about income instead of the balance of their portfolio, how the withdrawals are structured, and creating that spending plan that supports the lifestyle they work toward. Let's first talk about, the start of a career or the early working years for people. And I think that's accumulation.
It's what we preach, right?
Yeah, 100%.
This is the big preach on what you have to do to be successful eventually in your life. So what's it entail?
Well, essentially, you're earning money, whether you're earning money from your business or you are employed, you earn it, you spend to live, but you also need to be saving.
Yeah.
And that's just something that becomes ingrained in your minds.
We have these rules like 20, I always use the 20%. I figure whatever you make, 20% should go to savings. It's not yours. It goes into a fund for the later
For
you.
sure.
And that's the concepts. And you hear people sometimes say 15, but maybe 15 if you have a good pension plan or something like that. I think you really need 20% going into savings. But these are just rules of thumb. We try to put that in everyone's brain. Even, with my kids, I've started 20% of what you make has to go to savings. And I think all parents should try to enforce that with their kids.
I actually feel a little aggressive there when my eldest daughter, Maeve, she's 16. Well, 15 turning 16, and she's had a part-time job for the last year and a half. And I take 80% of her money. And I think, that's a little harsh, but I take that and I put that away for her because she's living at home. I'm still helping her pay her day to day, but I want her to have a little bit of money to spend, but it should be ingrained that if you're earning money, a part of it has to go to savings.
I thought you had more cash flow lately.
Yeah, exactly.
So that becomes your identity, basically. And again, we've talked about this before. There's savers and there's spenders,
Yep.
right? And we always say we only take on clients that are savers because spenders are disasters. And savers understand what they have to do and they do their part. The problem with the spenders that we see, they rely too much on markets and miracles to happen to save them. And a true saver can get normal type of investment results and live a good life. The spenders are required to, that's where you see people make these bets on, let's say Bitcoin or some type of crazy investment because they need to make 300-400% to make their situation work.
Well, they're trying to catch up because they spent the bulk of their years where they were supposed to be accumulating and saving, spending and having maybe a more expensive lifestyle than they could really afford. And I think with savers, has to be that fear built into them that, while they're working, again, earning business income or earning employment income, that's what's going to provide the money to live on. But when you stop working or, you're no longer receiving business income, that money, that income has to come from somewhere.
The problem is we've built this, as you said, we built a fear into them, right? So now we build fear and now it comes time to retire. And now we tell them, don't be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
So this is the real problem with converting people from a time when they're saving this money to go to the next stage of life where they're going to have to spend their money. And the people that have had good job on saving that, a lot of it has been, let's say, fear-based on making sure they have enough money. And now you're telling them, okay, now you're going to have to start spending your money. It's a difficult transition to make.
For sure. I think it's not necessarily unfair of us, but when you go through our meetings and we have our regular meetings with clients and we're saying, yeah, you need to be putting away your money into your RSP. Whatever's left over, you need to be maximizing your TFSA. Or perhaps they're fortunate enough to have a pension. Anything left over, you need to be building that retirement income source.
Simply put, everyone wants to be worth more money tomorrow than they are today. And that's sort of a nature of trying to save and move on in life. You're supposed to move ahead. And the idea that you're spending money and without returns, returns are the things that are supposed to offset, but without returns, if you spend money and you're not making any money, you're not going to be worth less tomorrow than you end today,
right,
is a hard concept for people to swallow. So let's talk about the psychology of spending assets, right? And let's get in. There's been a lot of different papers done on this. And we read through one that was by psychologist Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And they had a Nobel Prize in economics for their work. And it talks about loss aversion. And again, it talks about why portfolio withdrawals feel uncomfortable and why behavior biases influence financial decisions. We see this inside of practice because people will spend a lot easier in a strong market than they will when markets pull back.
Yeah.
And we've been in good markets and people feel comfortable spending some money and doing nice vacations and things like that. When we went through poor markets, let's say COVID, or we went through things before then, the first thing we saw is COVID was an unusual one because people couldn't spend money. But even without that situation that was put into that place, people naturally will not do, from other recessions I've seen in the past, people naturally curb their spending because it's just not that comfortable to do.
Right. It's often called loss aversion, and people don't like to see the value of their portfolio dropping. I often talk about it with clients, or we talk about it with clients, is the pain of losing money or seeing their portfolio value less is far worse than missing out on gains and getting money into the market. So people really don't want to see that bottom line drop.
And the other thing that happens too is with people that are working for a company, whenever you spend money and you have a job, you always think you're spending someone else's money. So you get paid, someone paid you money, and you go and buy something, so you spend someone else's money. The difference in once you've retired and no one's paying any money, you're spending your money. There's a big difference between spending someone else's money for things. To buy a car, you spend someone else's money, you bought a car. That's a great deal. I got a car and someone else paid for it. That's a great idea. And when you get into the situation when you no longer have that income in, the reality sets in. It's not someone else paying for that car. You're now buying that car out of your money. So it's not coming out of your pay. This is going to reduce the amount of money you have in the bank account to buy that car. That's a hard thing to get your head around.
It's almost an accountability thing. When you're working and you have an employer, it's their job to pay you the money. Like you put in your time and you are going to get paid for the time you put in. But when it's your own money, you're responsible for either maintaining the balance of your portfolio or making sure it doesn't run out.
There's no one supporting your lifestyle except for you. Well, there'll be a few things. If you're in Canada, you have a Canada pension plan and you have your OAS, but the amounts are not great. I mean, a Canada pension plan right now maximizes at $1,507 a month. That turns out to be a little bit over $18,000 a year. But the average Canada pension plan is actually $803 gets paid out per month. When you take OAS, old age securities, once you're 65, that's a total of $742 a month. And when you take that over a year, it's $8,900 a year. So when you take, let's say, your maximum CPP and your maximum OAS together, that's $26,992. You think that's enough to live on?
Gosh, no. And people do it and they curb their spending to live within it. But if you're relying on that income alone, that's not going to get you far, or probably not going to allow you to live the same way you did.
If you're a single person right now living in Toronto, and these are just off what I talk to people, your rent is about $2,300 a month, somewhere around there. And so you're pushing around, $25,000 a year in, over that, $25,000, $26,000 a year in rent alone. And this is only paying you $26,000. So that doesn't even really cover your rent in these areas. So do you need savings? Absolutely. You need savings or a pension plan. Otherwise, you're going to have problems.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about this. And we often talk about financial confidence when it comes to retiring. Knowing that you will have a fixed income from CPP and OAS, that's great. But we just talked about it, it's not enough to allow you to live the lifestyle you were used to living. So it's important, again, if you're fortunate enough with your employer, you've been able to set money aside into a pension plan and have that as a consistent income like CPP and OAS, there's the responsibility of the pension plan to be providing you income. But then on top of that, you need to be accumulating while you're working so that you have that additional source of income.
And the one thing that people don't realize is we all know practice makes you get good at things.
Right.
So with experience and practice, you get used to doing this. Do people get any practice for retirement?
No, it just happens and you're in it.
It just happens. And there are situations, not like they got to prepare for it. You don't have preliminary retirements or anything like that. They have no practice doing this. And all of a sudden, one day, they don't have to go to work in the morning and they don't have a paycheck. And their life has changed. This is a new life. Creates tremendous anxiety.
For sure.
We have a client advisory board. I remember talking about this once, and everyone's biggest fear, and these were a bunch of wealthy people. Their biggest fear was retirement. And because it was a change in psychology of how they have to go and live. And we found many people are so afraid of retirement, they only partially retire. They do contract work, they do something in between because they're afraid to give up that. They don't want to let go of the rope and just drop.
Right.
So they'll go and hang on by some strings and say, I'm going to do some consulting work just to get me by to a point where I become comfortable with it. And it was funny. We had a room of people that were fully retired and people that are still hanging onto those strings.
Right.
And the people who are fully retired were trying to talk the guys to let them go and say, it's okay. Once this happens, your life becomes much simpler. But it's a really tough thing to get your mind through. We as financial advisors, we've been doing this for, I'm 30 years, you're 20 plus years doing this. Have you brought many people through this stage?
Yes, brought through many that, again, it's about the confidence, and it's our job as planners to be able to give them the confidence that they can retire and let go.
And you've seen things, right? You've seen people who've had successful retirements. You've seen people who have unsuccessful retirements. You've seen tragedies along the way. We go through this. I think I've probably brought well over 1,000 people over through retirements. And I've seen things go very well. And I've seen situations where people keep on working to 70 years old and drop dead within a month after retirement, and it was all the fear of being able to let go. They never had a retirement. They worked and then they died. We want to make sure people don't go through these experiences because we can walk them through what has gone on with all the different situations we've seen. It's really helpful to have a coach to get you through these difficult times when you're making new decisions on, okay, can I still spend money? Can I still eat at a restaurant? Should I drop my golf membership? Can I afford that? I'm really worried about travel. Should I go to this place I want to see this year? Someone has to go and walk you through all these financial decisions, say, we looked at your plan, and part of that is that you did this trip that's out to Europe, that you always want to see this place in Europe. This is built in the plan. Listen, take it out, go enjoy yourself, and this is part of your retirement. Without someone doing that for them, it becomes a lot of anxiety.
The amount of times I've heard from a client that we're not only walking through the numbers and their finances, but we're also almost like a therapist where they're talking through the things that they're scared of. And it is a big behavioral shift when we're walking them through their early working years into pre-retirement and then into retirement. Again, we've preached to them. You need to save. You need to have enough money in order to be able to retire. And these are your plans in retirement. So walking through that and ensuring that they understand is part of our role then to give them the confidence. So Mike, to your point, yes, we've built into the plan that you're going to be spending $50,000 every 8 years to buy a vehicle. Do it. It's in the plan. We've shown you it can be done. You want to be able to spend $25,000 to $30,000 a year in vacation. We've walked through the numbers. It's okay. And it's our job to allow people to have that retirement and allow them to let go. Because again, it is a huge change from save to enjoy.
Just being financially successful as a saver is pretty easy. You just go save the money.
Exactly.
Being financially successful as a spender is a whole different thing. And they're not necessarily the same mental experience to go through.
Right.
So it's hard to get that conversion in there. So I guess what this comes down, most of the focus is on building wealth, save and invest in and grow in your portfolio. But eventually the question changes. Instead of asking how to grow money, people start asking how that money should support the lifestyle. We also talked about how psychology plays a role here. Research shows that withdrawing from investments can feel uncomfortable because people naturally dislike seeing their balances go down. And in Canada, retirement income usually comes from a mixed source like CPP, OAS, investment withdrawals, which together help create a more stable income. At the end of the day, financial planning isn't just about building a portfolio. Eventually, it becomes about understanding how the portfolio supports the life you want to live.
Yeah. For many people, that transition happens gradually. You talked about it earlier. People dip their toe into it, right? Careers evolve, businesses grow, and retirement slowly comes into view. So taking the time to consider how your investments will ultimately translate into income can bring clarity to the next stage of life you're approaching. So remember, if you need a little extra help taking that next step, check the show notes and get in touch with us. We'd be happy to help guide you through this important mindset shift in your financial journey.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Think Smart with TMFG. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Think Smart podcast. I'm Mike Connon with the McClellan Financial Group of CI Asante Wealth Management. Don't forget to subscribe to Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and leave us a review. For more insights and resources, visit tmfg.ca or follow the link in the episode description.
This program was prepared by Michael Connon, who is a senior financial advisor with CI Asante Wealth Management Limited. This is not an official program of CI Asante Wealth Management Limited, and the statements and opinions expressed during this podcast are not necessarily those of CI Asante Wealth Management Limited. CI Asante Wealth Management Limited is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. This show is intended for general information only and may not apply to all listeners or investors. Please obtain professional financial advice or contact me at 905-771-5200 or visit tmfg.ca to discuss your circumstances prior to acting on the information presented.